America.
It's that time. Your fix is here. College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Shurburtt of 24/7 Sports have you covered. Beginning right now.
It is episode number 252. If you're scoring at home, another installment of JC and Morgan, away from our normal day and time because of the holiday. We'll be back with you each and every Monday, live in the morning for those that are up and at 'em. And the rest of you, of course, can listen whenever you want. The beauty of modern day technology on YouTube, Facebook, X, Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. He is JC Shurburtt at 24/7 Sports. I am merely Mike Morgan. Behind the proverbial and somewhat fictitious glass is our fearless producer, Mad Dog Phil Molinax. Lots to get to this time of year. A little less heavy on the guest line because we have so much to say and so much to do. We will do a kind of an overview of the week one that was. We'll do a deep dive. I've got a particular quarterback that might not be a name you're thinking of, or maybe a name you were even familiar with before this past weekend, but certainly made a name for himself. And just, you know how it is, JC. I go down these rabbit holes. I've got to know more information. I've got to start looking people up. I want to know answers to questions that my brain pops up each and every week in college football. We'll get back to the boss. Top performers in college football in week one. Of course, we will have the Emmy-nominated JC5. That will return in the B block. Group 5. John had plenty to say. It was a good run for several Group 5 teams and players, and we'll look ahead to week 2. So with all that being said, I say to you, JC, donning the UNLV visor, in the name of Randall Cunningham, how are you?
Big win for the Rebels at Houston by 20. Willie Fritz, and admittedly, man, I'm sorry, I have not looked at the comings and goings of the Houston Cougars in the portal. I know UNLV lost their quarterback, went to Southern Cal to be the backup. Talking about moves that make no sense. Yeah, I guess they paid him, so that's good. He's a good player last year for him, so I was concerned about how they would replace him, but they looked really good on defense. Barry Odom, say what you want about his tenure at Missouri, but this guy, when he was at Memphis with Fuente way back in the day, and I remember watching a game where they played Ole Miss. Ole Miss beat them like 14-6, something like that. Or they beat Ole Miss and held them to 3. It was some kind of weird score where Memphis, for one period in their history, was playing defense. And I was like, who is that guy? Barry Odom. I mean, and he was a big name. He goes to his alma mater, gets the job. Sort of like the Matt Luke situation at Ole Miss. They kind of felt like they could do better. They have elevated their program under Eli Drinkwitz, but he gets the UNLV job after Coach O says no. Coach O, I don't think Las Vegas will be very good for me right now.
Slot machine.
We agree, Coach. That's from Florida. It's got water. So, or actually, maybe they went with Odom over O. I don't know. He hired Bobby Petrino originally as his OC. Bobby Petrino left and went to Texas A&M and ultimately back to Arkansas. That guy's well traveled. I wonder if he travels on a motorcycle. Cha-ching, ba-da-bounce. Anyway, I hope Arkansas fans are happy hanging 70 on that high school football team. They played in Little Rock Thursday night, too. That team was Arkansas Pine Bluff. Man, don't bust out the solid colored black and gold uniforms like my junior high alma mater, the DR Hill Tigers, if you can't wear that with a little more pride. You look terrible. Anyway, Arkansas took care of business. But back to Barry Odom. And then made a very good hire with Brendan Marion, who runs. He's kind of a legend around some of the people that like to watch film and study playbooks and stuff. He has the go-go offense, and it works. And he is that program has been terrible for a long, long time, but it looks like they're not going anywhere in the Mountain West. In fact, I've seen them, the UNLV Rebels, in some playoffs. Some playoff projections is that group of 5 teams. So I'll be pretty happy with that if that happens. Goodness gracious. Who doesn't want a UNLV Notre Dame matchup at South Bend?
It's what the fans have been clamoring for years.
I think they actually did play a couple of years ago in the opener, and Notre Dame hung about 60 on them. But hats off to Barry Odom and that win. I've talked about that enough. But, what a very – good weekend. It was a good weekend for yours truly, because some of the stuff not all the stuff, but some of the stuff I've been saying kind of played out. It always feels good to be sort of right about things. I kind of felt like Boston College would be a lot better team, and we talked to Tom Luganbill about that. I felt like, I wasn't as confident about Notre Dame because their situation at tackle, but they survived that well. And I think, you look at the rest of their schedule, of course, there's the kill zone, and I know we're going to talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
And Miami, the more I think about this, Mike, I'm going to say I'm wrong. I've been wrong. Maybe I've been wrong. I mean, Miami's had some bad coaching hires since Butch Davis left. Larry Cooker kind of played out the string. Randy Shannon wasn't the answer. Al Golden. Mark Richt's pretty good for the 3 years he was there, but obviously didn't want to coach that long, and he has got some health issues, so he bowed out. Manny Diaz was atrocious. And then Mario Cristobal, who did a great job at Oregon, his record, same as Dan Lanning, comes into his alma mater, gets paid all the money. They're putting money behind it, and he goes 12-13. Well, maybe you're right about this. If you think about your overall philosophy on college football, Mike, and it's been the quarterback position. Maybe they've been trying to recreate Steve Walsh or Vinny Testaverde, and in today's game, you can't. Unless you have a great offensive line, which is hard to do because of the defensive lines you play. Maybe it's been quarterback play. I started thinking about some of these guys they've had. Brad Kaya was talented. Didn't really make them. I mean, can you remember since maybe Gino Torretta? That Ja'Cory Harris for a while? I mean, I started thinking about all the Miami quarterbacks. I'm sure there's one that snuck into the pros somewhere. But, man, Cam Ward has made a big, big difference with that program.
Yeah, Gino Torretta, there's a name. Might be the worst Heisman Trophy winner of all time. No, Cam Ward is that dude. And, Craig and Chad Rowe asking me about Miami. Absolutely. Look, I've always said on this show, we used to do hits and misses. We might get back to a little DEF CON action because I found some clips from War Games, a Dimer 2-star movie that we could definitely have some fun with.
I'm going to get mad at you right now because you text me about DEF CON this weekend.
Yes.
And on Sunday, I was kind of chillaxing. But this is the last Sunday I'll have off without the Bears watch party, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm kind of not taking texts. I'm just kind of, waiting on LSU. And you text me that. So I actually watched War Games this weekend.
What?
Terrible movie. What a terrible movie. And the damn thing doesn't end either. At the end, it's like you think it's all done. Everybody's celebrating. Oh my God. Yeah. Jonathan. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. I mean, it's the cheesiest thing ever. Matthew Broderick.
Ali Sheedy,
who looked attractive, and I'm not an Ali Sheedy
He
fan.
was adorable back in the day.
Yeah, I mean that Southern dude that was the colonel. I think this thing's a big old hunk of poo. You know,
I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought to do something.
Dude, I mean, I'm like, when I was a kid, I loved that movie. And I'm like, it's like the Black Hole, the Disney movie. I went back and watched it one time. It was terrible. But anyway, so I'm mad at you for that, Mike. I'm never going to forgive you.
First off, I am. You might be mad at me, but I'm happy with you because the fact I can never get you to watch anything. I'm starting with Last Chance U, the Sean Penn. I'll give it 2.5-star classic. Bad Boys. I'm 0 for 100. But I somehow inspired you with those clips to watch War Games. And for those that are like under the age of 30, just trust me, it's like a mid-80s. Back in the 80s, there were just all these movies. You got to remember, there was the true Cold War. Not what people are growing up with today. There was a true, people were genuinely scared crapless that we were going to be invaded by nuclear weapons by Russia. And so there are a lot of movies that centered around that. And the end of civilization, there was a TV movie that scared the crap out of people. And I was too young to understand what it was. But it was all about the same thing. Like the nuclear weapons just hit America and we're basically nothing but left but sand. But at any rate, Miami, yes.
Yeah.
Miami, if Miami does not win the ACC now, I will be shocked. So what I was going to say is my favorite part of that old segment we did, I love talking about what I was wrong about. I'm not worried about what my winning percentage is on predictions. Predictions are like belly buttons. Everybody has one, but you don't know why. Yeah, I mean, so I'm okay. I'm right enough. I don't need to like be right all the time, and it's boring. There's nothing worse than like the guy at the party who wants to tell you everything that he knows and has to be the smartest guy in the room. I want things that I'm wrong about. I think I was wrong about Miami. At least I was reluctant to buy the hype. It's not that I didn't believe in Cam Ward. It's that I was, and I kept hearing about all the money they put into the offensive and defensive line. I was like, okay, that's certainly, you're making all the right steps. But it's still Miami. Cristobal is still coaching. They got to go into the swamp with a coach that clearly desperately needed a win. We can talk more about that later. And they went in there and they just destroyed Florida. The difference in the line of scrimmage in that game, not to take away anything from Cam Ward, he's on the boss segment. He was flawless, absolutely flawless. The difference in the line of scrimmage, it was, you just see it right off the bat, JC. There's certain games that when you watch a quarter, you're like, oh, yep, advantage Miami. Like that, like you don't just all of a sudden go on a roll where the line of scrimmage changes in the fourth quarter, and you know how to block better, and you know how to rush the passer better. It was omnipresent in the first 15 minutes of that game, and watching Clemson continue to fall from the ranks, watching Florida State be abysmal. I told you that was more about Florida State being bad and not Georgia Tech being great. And I'm not NC State struggled to beat an FCS opponent. North Carolina. If Miami doesn't win the ACC, I don't know if they'll ever win it because they clearly have the best talent in that conference. I don't think it's even close.
Yeah, I look at their lines of scrimmage, and those guys showed up. They returned some players, too. I mean, this isn't all just buying out of the portal like Florida State did, and you have a bunch of names, and clearly that defensive line is at FSU. All those Alabama transfers have meant, to quote Chris Farley, down by the river, Matt Foley, motivational speaker, means jack squat. Look, fellas, it's Marvin Jones. Does he play for the Jets? Actually, no, it means junior. It's not jack squat. They were terrible again against another good offensive line. I'll tell you this.
DJ is not that guy and never will be that guy.
God. And he's getting hammered on. So I feel bad for the kid now.
I feel bad for him, but he's just, you didn't have to take the money.
You didn't have to leave.
Right. You could have just stayed where you were. Nobody, even if you had a bad game, would notice anymore. but he got a payday. And if you're Florida State, again, these schools now are hiring basically GMs, director of personnel, salary cap type of people, right? And you went ahead and you floated a big old check to get DJ. You would have been better off getting Diego Pavia.
Oh, heck yeah. Look, the GM at Florida State is obviously, I think he's made a couple of mistakes. One in particular I won't get into, but if that's the product, if you're going to be a portal team, you've got to have a guy. Mike Norvell needs a guy that doesn't make. I mean, it's not just DJ. There's a lot of guys they brought in, and on paper, everybody's like, they got the best portal class ever. Oh, my God. And they obviously don't. I mean, they don't. There's a lot of other schools that probably could make that argument, Miami included. And Florida State, but then again, Florida State missed out on Cam Ward. The kid was probably going there and then went to Miami instead. Better. I don't know if it was G's or whatever. Now, I'll say this too. I think a lot of talk about Florida having such a great D-line all off season. I think people were just kind of grasping. I knew they weren't that good on the offensive line. Montrell Johnson had a pretty good game, but, I mean, then Graham Mertz gets hurt. The hope for Florida would be maybe and we'll see, I haven't gotten a report on Mertz, if you just start the DJ Lagway era, sometimes that can inspire you.
Yeah,
and you got Samford this weekend, and then it's everything when the Aggies come to town. Texas A&M struggled mightily on offense against what I think's going to be a pretty good defense. But you got to win that game and beat Mississippi State and kind of beat UCF and turn it around a little bit and flush Miami, because the question is going to be with Florida. Is Florida this bad, or is Miami just this good? They're not the first Florida team to take a butt whipping to the mighty Canes in the swamp. I'll never forget Ron Zook's game against Miami in 2002. He came out there, and he was wearing coaching shorts or some tight pants that didn't look like Steve Spurrier. They were in all blue uniforms. He was carrying the American flag or something. He's like a professional wrestler at the Swamp. And Miami came in there, and that was that second Ken Dorsey team, and just beat the snot out of them. I mean, 41-16, I think, was the final there. And so that happened. I mean, they're not the first Florida team to take an L to a good Miami team or take an L, period. It's how you respond. That's the way it is in life. That's the way it is in college football.
Yeah, we shall see. I would say that my big takeaway on week one overall, college football caught a major break late because it was blowout city. 2 of the 3 major games were disappointments. We just mentioned one of them. Florida didn't compete again. That game was over at the half. They did not compete against Miami. They didn't look like they were on the same field. And same thing with Clemson. I mean, Clemson, I saw a power number here that I'll have to get to in a second. What they are in their last however many games against top 25 competition, it ain't good. And Dabo has an answer for everything. And I have maintained it's deeper than just the portal, because there are programs that actually recruit great quarterbacks and don't have to just shop in the portal. And Georgia's one of them, for that matter. But Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson have not been walking through that door. And all those great wide receivers have not been walking through that door. I can understand where Clemson fans, again, I'll use the quote from Wall Street. It's more difficult to have had money and lose it than to never had it at all. So you got a taste. You got a taste of the good life. 6 straight playoffs, 2 national championships. At that point, Clemson entered a club that they'd never been into, and that was the elite of college football. So all of a sudden, when you feel it slipping from your grasp, man, it's hard. It's real hard. What do I always talk about, JC, for every program? The high water mark. Every program has a high water mark, and you convince your fans that that's going to be the norm, and it never is. And for Clemson, that norm is not coming back anytime soon. I just can't see it right now.
The game went about like I thought it was going to go the first half. Georgia didn't really put a lot of points on the board, but my guy Mike Bobo, there's a difference between Todd Monken and Mike Bobo. Todd Monken got in what I call the zone, play calling wise.
Not the kill zone.
Not the kill zone, but the play calling zone. Will Lawing and Bill O'Brien were in that zone Monday night for Boston College. And sometimes it lasts a whole season. Sometimes, with Monken's case, it lasts two. So Mike was never going to be Todd Monken when he took over. But that dude, I've seen it before. He's great at making halftime adjustments, especially in the run game. He'll make subtle adjustments, Mike, and the line will block a foot to the left or a foot to the right. It's crazy. It's like a Paul Johnson almost. And all of a sudden, Georgia will start gashing you. I've seen it against other teams. Sometimes if they are playing a really good team like Alabama, I mean, you can't notice it. But, boy, they adjusted the second half. And I'll also say this about Clemson's defense. I think Clemson's defense is elite. But when your offense is playing that way and getting completely dominated, and it's really, like you're not getting the ball to your playmakers, you got drops, your quarterback does nothing to inspire confidence, you're getting dominated at the line of scrimmage, you have a measly field goal, and then all of a sudden, it's hard to get out there every single play in college football and win a 9-6 or 6-3 game. Those don't happen that often anymore, especially against good teams. And so they didn't necessarily quit, but I wouldn't beat up on the Clemson defense for the second half. I mean, that's just how the game went. I've seen that before too. If you have a bad offense or your offense is having a terrible day, and you just eventually as a defender, you're just we're not going to score, and we're worn out and tired, and fatigue makes cowards of us all, so to speak. So was Club? I know DJ was a 5-star. Klubnik was highly recruited. Oh, he was a 5-star. His backup Vazani, I think there's Vazani is a 5-star too.
So you go from they're still recruiting. They're still recruiting at a high level in the upstate of South Carolina, but you go from Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence to DJ and Cade Klubnik. So they all have 5 stars next to their name, but man, is there a hell of a difference between the first two and the second two.
Well, I have some experience in recruiting, and I'll be honest. I've rated some quarterbacks 5 stars that weren't. I'll give you a big example. John Brantley, who played at Florida.
Yeah.
I thought he was can't miss. There were other guys. So you got to be careful with that. And sometimes you got to go with the 3-star, 4-star. Sometimes you got to kind of look around and see who wants to come and who you like and who's good, and make your own evaluations. And I think Clemson did. And when you evaluate these guys, I mean, Klubnik threw for 1,000,000 yards, and you didn't expect the receiver situation. And it's just on offense with them. They've had a lot of guys that haven't panned out. Well, I tell everybody all the time, recruiting rankings bat about 600. There's 40% of those highly rated guys that don't work out. So.
They certainly have not. I'll just say this before we get to the boss. Overarching thought, because the Clemson-Georgia game, the Florida-Miami game were so disappointing, and like if you're just an average college football fan with no skin in the game, those 2 games were things you looked for. So now the pressure's on Texas A&M, Notre Dame to save the day on what was a very highly touted and highly anticipated triple header, and that game did. And I'll tell you what else did. Southern Cal, LSU. That game was big for multiple reasons. The winner in those final 2 games is college football, because as much as many people hate Notre Dame, and I know your lovely bride is a huge Notre Dame fan, so congratulations to her. College football, you need that black hat. You need the evil empire to be relevant. Notre Dame is not only relevant, they're going to the playoff. Okay, pretty safe prediction, September the 4th. Some would say it's irresponsible. It's pretty safe when you look at that schedule and the fact that they just went into College Station. Any tiebreaker you can think of, that committee will have Notre Dame playing a home game on December, 20th, I think? Yeah.
Probably the 20th, yeah. So there's 1 on Friday and 3 on Saturday. So
okay. So,
Notre Dame will not get the Friday night game in my
No. They'll from a TV standpoint, they'll figure out the best slot for Notre Dame. A home game at Notre Dame and a playoff? Are you kidding me? Tell me you want to go back to the BCS. Tell me you want to go back to the 14 playoff. Please tell me that. And then Southern Cal, a team on the left coast. I know they're in the Big Ten, but they're still on the left coast, and they are a major brand, and they have a huge fan base. Them being relevant, which is something they have not been for years under Lincoln Riley and before. That's a win for college football. Those two games for college football, and a weekend where there were slaughter games all over the place. I call them paycheck games. You buy an FCS, you buy a crappy FBS opponent, and you can go ahead and pile up a bunch of points and stats, and the game's over in the third quarter. And there was enough of that. But we did have some marquee games that lived up to the hype. Those were two. So that was really exciting to see. The fact that we've got some more people in the party, so to speak, right now is good. And we've always got that, that projection. Okay, who in the top 10 is going to finish unranked? Well, Florida State clearly is that team, and I can't even imagine how that's going to look by the end of the year. But it's not going to be pretty. All right, Maestro, can we get some boss music going? So Up after a quick timeout, JC and Morgan rolls on.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the two of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cards while you're at it.
I knew I liked that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, Freddie.
You bet.
Mike here for our friends at MG&A Wealth. It's never a bad time to have someone on your side for all your financial needs. You need a trustworthy partner who has a true understanding of your situation in order to help you with smart and practical solutions. Since 1984, MG&A Wealth has helped their clients manage not just their wealth, but their lives. Today, as a nationally recognized wealth management firm, their team of pros remains dedicated to serving your best interests with an emphasis on personal attention and customized solutions. MG&A Wealth has clients all across the country, and they all get results. Don't put it off any longer. Call our friends at MG&A Wealth at 954-289-9000. That's 954-289-9000. MGAwealth.com is the website. They do more than manage wealth. They help manage lives.
Listen up. This is for construction professionals, contractors, facility managers, or do-it-yourself homeowners. Site Pro Rentals is ready to equip your upcoming project. We rent construction equipment for any size job. Boom and scissor lifts, telehandlers, skid steers, excavators, air compressors, generators, even small tools and equipment. Site Pro has you covered. If you are ready for better equipment rental, call Site Pro and rent from the local, friendly, easy to do business with equipment professionals. Call 972-RENT-NOW. That's 972-736-8669 to rent the newest equipment in the Atlanta market. Call 972-RENT-NOW or visit siteprorentals.com.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable, because this movement is just beginning.
Here's JC and Morgan.
All right, we are back. JC and Morgan, presented proudly by MG&A Wealth for all your financial needs. It's great to have some people on your side. Not a kind of jack-in-the-box, just chain wealth management type of firm. This is locally owned and operated, has been since 1984, and they have made their clients millions. Smart ideas, prompt solutions, performance, a sense of security. You need a firm that understands and responds. That is MG&A Wealth. For our YouTube and Facebook and X viewers, you can see the number occasionally scrolling at the bottom, but I'll tell it to you again, mgawealth.com. You can reach out to Sean. He's been over there for 20 years, and again, his clients have made a lot of money. 954-289-9000, 954-289-9000. And it is now time for the JC5.
It's time,
I believe,
for the top topics in the sport. We bring the JC5. Number 1. It's time for the top topics in the sport. We bring the JC5. Number 1.
Don't worry. For those that have been to Disney, the monorail guy that comes on in English and Spanish, please stand clear of the doors. Sometimes
do we have to pay our voice guy 3 times the normal amount? I mean, that's going to really cut into our budget.
The voiceovers union, voiceover union's going to give us a call. The guild. We didn't pay stock for that.
No,
All right, Mike. So we're 87 days away from the Battle of the Sunshine State. Florida State versus Florida. That game's in Tallahassee this year. Question for you. Who will be the head coach at Florida? And will it be Billy Napier at that point, in your opinion? And will DJU be the quarterback for Florida State in that game?
Oh, wow. Wow. There's a great meme right now. Any of your teams that had a rough week one, even some teams that won a game against a lighter opponent but didn't look very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's several fans who listen to this show know what I'm talking about. There's a meme of Ben Affleck leaned up against a wall with a cigarette in his hand. Probably was taken after their 74th argument, he and J-Lo.
Yeah.
And he's just got this look in his face like, F my life. Just F it.
And they superimposed the team on the sweatshirt.
Yeah, they superimposed the team. Yes.
There's another one that's, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say there's one where you've got two Ben Afflecks with that meme, cigarette, despondent, F my life. One is wearing a Florida logo shirt. The other one's wearing a Florida State logo shirt. Misery loves company sometimes. But yeah, but before I answer your question, go ahead.
I was going to say there's one that was like Florida State game is going to be streamed live on Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah,
They're
so
talking
that.
about
The CW,
the CW,
Ion.
It is an ACC home game, so it could come on that Thanksgiving weekend right after Gilmore Girls, Mike.
It very well could. It very well could. Look, you have, let's just say you're on point when it comes to all the 24/7 sites out there. So you know as well as anybody what that Florida one has looked like. That's what the Swamp 24/7, Swamp 24/7,
Swamp 24/7,
Swamp 24/7. What's the Florida State one?
Florida State is Knowles 24/7. It's a little bit more.
I mean, they're coming off an undefeated before they got beat by 60 by Georgia. Yeah. They're coming off a really good year. I still think Mike Norvell has that thing in the right direction. They lost a ton.
They're frustrated, but they're not. Florida is frustrated whether they're
Florida's a different
5-0 or 4.
Yeah,
their fans are a little bit different than FSU fans.
Florida's in danger of 4 consecutive losing seasons. That hasn't happened since the 1930s, before World War II actually went down. So it's a different. So the toxicity you can only imagine. The Napier thing, I don't know. Here's the rumors, and they're worth nothing. Lane Kiffin. That's where the scope is. That's where the, I heard from this, from that. Lane's always liked the job. He wanted the job the last time it was open. All that stuff. And to all that, I just say, Lane has been rumored to leave for Auburn, which might have been actually that was close.
Yeah, everybody needs to go. The thanks are going to hire Lane Kiffin. Go read the Chris Lowe article about Lane.
Yeah, and
his life now, and his daughters, and his family.
He's a different.
We didn't all know that Lane Kiffin had changed like that. But
here's how I knew. I only knew. I don't know Lane personally. I mean, I've been in a meeting room with him, but it's not like we talked about his family and all that good stuff. But I remember just being in Tuscaloosa a couple of years ago and going to a Nick Saban practice and talking to the people that have been with that program for years and talking about Lane and Tuscaloosa, which was no holes barred, just a lot of bad stuff, versus Lane now. He's clearly grown up. You know, if we were doing this show 5, 6, 7 years ago and we were talking about Lane Kiffin, I'd be like, if I was an AD, I wouldn't touch him. Wouldn't touch him. Now everybody wants him. But he's turned down Auburn. He's turned down Miami, if you believe, back channels of what he was offered, what he wasn't. I just don't know why you would leave. He's got a chance to make history at Ole Miss. I get it. Like, you're never going to have 85,000 screaming fans at Vaught Hemingway like you do at some of these other places. You don't have necessarily some of the advantages that you do in other places in recruiting, but what has turned this thing completely upside down for Ole Miss is that they're crushing the portal. They're crushing Sorry, Dabo. They're crushing the portal. And you combine that with Lane. Lane has evolved as a play caller, too. And Lane has evolved as a coach. It's no longer just kind of some of the nepotism and things that got him started a little bit. I'm not saying he wasn't qualified. I'm just saying that, sometimes you get hyped early based on the name. But I think that trip to Alabama got his credibility as a play caller. And then some tough love from Nick Saban got his credibility in life. And so right now he's got it all going on. And I don't think he's in a hurry to leave. Ole Miss is going to pay him whatever he needs to be paid. Ole Miss has money, as witnessed with what they're doing in the portal. I don't. So to answer your question, JC, if it's not him, I had no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. And this is where it's not just as simple as, well, we're the fan base, we're pissed off, so let's just make a change for change's sake. You've done that at Florida. How's it working? How is it working? It's not. And then you start getting like desperation. What about Urban Meyer coming back? What about firing Billy in the middle of the year and having Spurrier call the play? You can't do that. None of that's happening. None of that. It's fun talk for message boards, but none of that is realistically happening. So I don't know where they would go if that happens.
I'm going to read off the 5 of the 7 years prior to Billy Napier coming to Florida. SEC East champion, SEC East champion, down year. New Year's Six Bowl, New Year's Six Bowl. SEC East champion, beat Georgia, almost went to the playoff if a shoe hadn't been thrown. New Year's Six Bowl, 3 straight New Year's Six Bowls, an SEC East title during Georgia's run. Bad year. Napier, bad year, and bad year. So, all right. So guys have gotten fired for less. And so here's the deal with Lane Kiffin in Florida. I think he's the perfect coach for them. He's a Steve Spurrier type. He kind of runs his program like Steve Spurrier. He's got quips. He would be the perfect quintessential Gator coach, because he's a little folksy, but also, funny.
The word you're looking for is arrogant,
but also arrogant.
But a good arrogant.
But he is a good arrogant. It's not like Mullen, piss everybody off arrogant. I mean, they'll regret firing Dan Mullen's going to get another job soon and start winning at a place that probably you have no business winning pretty soon. So he's just a good coach. Is he a guy that is going to be great on the fried chicken circuit? No, but neither is Billy Napier. Have we heard him talk lately?
Yeah, no, that's not his thing.
I still think Billy's a pretty good coach, and he's a good person and all that. And I'm
very
not,
good person.
But if the face of your program, he doesn't do much to inspire confidence. And then
he's calling plays.
And you can't. Look at his teams at Louisiana. I mean, in his offenses. So anyway, so 5 of the previous 7 years, they've been really good, not championship good, which is what you expected, what they are supposed to expect at Florida, but better than their historical average pre-Spurrier, where they weren't good at all, unless you count the year they went on probation, right? But they're not used to losing. They're kind of used to having decent seasons down there. And so if I'm Lane Kiffin, yes, I'm Scott Strickland at Florida, assuming Scott Strickland has a job, the AD. I am going to do whatever it takes to get him there. But if I'm Lane Kiffin, do you think I'm going to take that job? Because the 2 guys previous that Dan Mullen, Jim McElwain, got fired. One's out of coaching. One's about to get fired at Central Michigan. After taking that job. Will Muschamp couldn't get it back together at South Carolina after Florida fired him.
Will did have an 11-win season in Gainesville. It wasn't all the nightmare that sometimes people make it out to be.
He had winning 3 bowl trips in 4 years and the one big year. Ron Zook, kind of like Muschamp at South Carolina. Ron Zook won some at Illinois, then petered out. So everybody that's taken that job since Spurrier left, with the exception of Urban Meyer, who's kind of his own thing, has not done any. It's ruined their career. And I'm not going to say Florida's a coaching graveyard, because obviously, Spurrier and Meyer both went on to other jobs after Florida and had success. But I would think twice about taking that one. At this point, maybe not after they got rid of Muschamp, maybe not even after they got rid of McElwain, but you're looking at a really good coach in Dan Mullen that was actually a good fit for them. He's a good offensive coach. He wins a lot. Just didn't. Those were stupid recruiting rankings, and we just talked about how the fact that school that has 2 5-star quarterbacks doesn't have a quarterback. So that's how stupid it is to sit there and panic over that. Even Kirby Smart has to get in the portal these days, right? Everybody misses. Mullen was better at evaluating than most. Okay. Look at what he had, Dak Prescott and then the guy. So they fired a perfectly good coach because they just didn't like him and he had a bad year. Right. And then they hired this guy who's was yet another Nick Saban disciple. Now Lane Kiffin's a Saban guy, but not really a Saban guy, if you know what I mean. But I would steer clear of the Saban disciples, the Kirby disciples, all the Dan Lannings of the world, all those guys. I would just go get a unique ball coach. Somebody mentioned Lance Leopold at Kansas. They need a football coach, man. To heck with all the extra stuff and all that. And they need somebody that fits that program that they like. And I think Lane Kiffin, as far as what Florida needs, is perfect. But as far as what Lane Kiffin needs, man, I'd stay at Ole Miss. I'd stay at Ole Miss until something came up good. And you also have to, I don't know how old his daughter is and all that, but if he didn't go and take Auburn, with the deal they were going to make him, and Auburn does fire coaches, but they're not as quick on the trigger. I mean, Tuberville lasted a while, Malzahn, even Chiswick, when it dipped a little, they didn't just go and fire him. They fired him the next year. Even Auburn has not been as quick trigger as Florida. Florida has once Tennessee kind of settled in with Heupel, Florida took that top spot, and they can't keep doing it. So
remember what I said about the Clemson situation. It's harder to have had money and lose it than to never have it at all. Florida was rolling under 2 coaches. And a Hall of Famer and Steve Spurrier, and whether you like him or not, Urban Meyer's resume is definitely a Hall of Fame resume. And so then you sense that it's slipping away from your fingers, first under Will, then under McElwain. And then the whole Dan Mullen thing was just you had people like our friend that we've had on from Georgia, Robert Griffin. Is it Robert Griffin or David Griffin? I'm sorry. I just thinking of RG3. David, yeah.
Mike. I mean, it's Mike.
Mike Griffin, yeah. I know too many Griffins in my life.
Mike. That's another Disney World reference. That's 2.
Okay.
Jeez.
So he would go on Feinbaum and basically trash Dan Mullen's recruiting record. And so Florida fans had this belief that Dan just didn't care at all about recruiting, that he was lazy, that in this day and age that you can't beat Georgia. That everything was about Georgia. Georgia. Kirby's killing it recruiting, and Dan Mullen doesn't care, and that's what led to the firing. One bad year, and that.
Why don't they remember the head Gator down there, Coach Spurrier, who, by the way, I don't know what podcast. I don't know if it was Shane Matthews' podcast, which you can catch on our Chief Sports app, by the way, for you Gator fans, or what podcast he was on. But he's like, well, I just got a little bit of advice. Just make some changes. Shoot, you can't keep doing the same thing. Spurrier did that as a head coach, even with his quarterbacks almost to an extreme, but it served him well. So, I don't know, but you got to think back to what he used to say when he went on that big run against the Dogs in Jacksonville. It's like, well, shoot, looks like Georgia every year finishes top 3 in recruiting, and we're like 10th or 11th. But for some reason, we just keep winning the games. All right. Yep. So, yeah, that's what he did. Urban Meyer not only was an outstanding coach and recruiter and did recruit the 5 stars, and you can say what you want about some of the morality of the guys that he brought in. I will give you that he didn't leave a good locker room there, but when they won those championships with Tebow and all that, he not only brought it, he was like Saban. He brought in the right 5 stars, did the same thing at Ohio State, left at least the defensive side of the ball in really good shape. And that's how much McElwain, I mean, but he didn't just go and recruit 5 stars. Urban, I was national recruiting guy at Rivals when Urban got to Florida, and their evaluation process was incredibly good, like Saban level. And So he not only was an innovative game day coach, he could go get the right top rated guys, and they would find guys out of Florida that nobody else wanted that were ended up being pretty good too. You're in a state right now where, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of guys are going out of state, but there's still so much talent there, Mike, and there's so much talent that people don't find, especially down in South Florida. I mean, Miami, they recruited the state of Miami and they got the top guys from there, but they also got some guys that weren't that highly rated from down there that ended up being pros. There's too much talent, and a guy like Mullen, he's going to dig that out. He's going to dig that out because, personality wise, he ain't going into a living room and sweet talking anybody. Lou Holtz, he is not. So, Urban Meyer, he is not. And it's just who he is. But he found guys. He did it at Mississippi State. A lot of Florida's best players he left Billy are his guys. So
he did the best job at Mississippi State anybody's ever done.
Yeah, and that was against the Hugh Freeze recruiting machine.
Yes,
over at Ole Miss.
Yes,
and he just outsmarted them. And so I would have given him another year. I get it. Everybody panics, but
I think that's a classic case where boosters get in a room and they want to kind of throw their weight around. I give a lot of money, so I'm making this call, and and then we got to move on. But when these things happen, what I've learned, and every program's a little bit different. The DNA and the hierarchy of every program is a little bit different. But if you think your athletic director is making all the key calls on coaches, you're wrong. There are people that donate a lot of money now that have a major say in what coach stays, what coach goes, who gets the first phone call, who gets the second phone call, who do we not want to hire at all because he's not our kind of guy. That is very much in the machine. And it is a machine. Athletic directors do not have all the pull that very often you think they do. All right, next one.
Number 2.
All right.
Got to go tempo here.
So you mentioned Lincoln Riley and Lynn early, so this is about Southern Cal. All right, so it looks like they've at least in one game fixed their defense to a certain extent. LSU offensive line didn't play as well as I thought it would, but that had a lot to do with the Trojans and the game plan. Does this change your calculus for Southern Cal as far as the Big Ten goes? Because we've talked with Tom Luganbill about it being a line of scrimmage league. They're not a line of scrimmage team. Does this make them a little bit more? Could they be up there with the Ohio States and Penn States and Oregons, maybe Michigans of the world?
I don't want to overreact, but a Miller Moss to me is that guy. Okay. Kyron Hudson, who made maybe the best catch in week 1 of college football, is that guy. I didn't see them being dominated on the line of scrimmage. I didn't see, they're a finesse team and they're going to get manhandled by an SEC or line of scrimmage. I didn't see any of that. So I'm not saying they're in the class of Ohio State. I'm not even sure, even though Oregon struggled, I'm not sure they're even in the class of Oregon. But I do think Southern Cal has finally turned a corner here. And I'll go back to DeAnton Lynn. That was a huge pickup. They did a whole thing on the television broadcast of they showed the picture of the body a year ago, 12 months ago, and then 20 pounds of muscle a year later. That's like half their roster. I never get overly hyped about, because that's the easiest thing to do. You had a bad year. Well, clearly it's our strength coach. He's too damn soft. We need to hire Hans and Franz, and now we're going to be. That is such a scapegoat. That is such a get out of jail free card.
Hans and Franz.
Hans and Franz. We need to hire them Hans and Franz boys. They'll get us ready for big time football. None of this pansy finesse stuff. And inevitably the new guy comes in, and he's no neck and I don't care what you used to do. Power clean's the answer. But they look like a different breed. They looked like an SEC type of roster of athletes. So yeah, I'm not going to say I'm all in, but I think they're better. I certainly think they're better, and they clearly have been tired of hearing, and Lincoln especially, we don't care about defense. Lincoln doesn't care about defense. Never has, never will. They clearly have done a caged animal about face, JC, to make sure to put everybody on notice. They are going to play some defense in Southern California this year. So I think it's a huge win for them. And again, a nice pickup for the Big Ten.
Number 3.
All right. There's a little angst and consternation at the big house Saturday because Fresno State was right there. Pulled away at the end 30-10. They play Texas this weekend in Ann Arbor. Any concern that they're missing the pleated pants of Jim Harbaugh?
100%. What's a word bigger than concerned? Not because of the result on week 1. I just think in general. I mean, everybody, it's always good vibes when you promote the interim guy, and everybody's like all giddy about that, and it's a connection to your greatest moment, if you will, if you're Michigan. But yeah, I mean, they lost a lot of dudes, and Jim Harbaugh was a difference maker coach. So the short answer to your question is absolutely.
Number 4.
Number 4, Mike unmuted.
My fault on that.
Sorry.
My computer froze up on me.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't move my mouse. I don't know what happened with number 4.
They have a pill for that,
okay.
I believe.
Hey, listen. It's like some kind of like strange, weird part of Britain. Oh, my mouse wouldn't move.
Yes.
I couldn't move my mouse. I'd like to take a pill for it.
Yes.
Anyway, not to get too risque there. But all right. So Marcus Freeman, I've given him a hard time because I just didn't think he was very good. It kind of looked a little lost some games. I thought he should. Notre Dame should have been better start to finish last year. Blah, 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 blah. I watched that game Saturday night, Mike, and they looked powerful. They looked well coached. They looked, especially defensively, very good. They survived the Aggie defensive front. Riley Leonard's going to be good. I thought he made some good decisions. And I thought Kirby Smart, to a certain extent, has grown a lot as a coach. You know, people forget Kirby lost 5 games his first year and, you know, and had some OC issues and stuff. Has Marcus Freeman grown as a coach in your eyes? Are we seeing that?
I mean, I'd like to think he has, since losing a home game to Marshall 2 years ago, and kind of spitting the bit and having clock management and timeout issues. Look, there's no question he's learning on the fly. You know, again, another popular interim bump up hire, but those don't typically work. I'm going to give you, and I almost had this on my deep dive, but I'm going to give you another name because I went down another rabbit hole. Mike Denbrock. I know you know who he is.
Yeah, they got him back from LSU.
Exactly. Another coaching poach, another poach coach. Mike Denbrock, this is a guy, offensive coordinator. A lot of people were shocked that he left LSU, but he just kind of said, I've always wanted to be in South Bend. Like it's his 3rd stint there, by the way. He was there in 2002 and through 2004. He was there in 2010 to 2011, 2012, 2013. He was the offensive coordinator in 2014. And every time he's been there, he's done a great job. And if you look at the other places he's been, look at what he did with it. I get it. Jaden Daniels is a freak and the Heisman Trophy winner, and he had receivers. But that LSU offense was unbelievable last year. Go back and look at the number. It doesn't get talked about enough because their defense was so atrocious. It was a disappointing year. But Denbrock is a dude. That is a major, major hire to be able to get him. He's a 36-year coaching veteran. So I would say, in addition to the talent Notre Dame has, in addition to the players that they have brought in, and of course you know how I feel about their quarterback, loved him at Duke, love him there, that was a major, major pickup that probably didn't get enough exposure or attention when it happened.
Absolutely. And I think LSU misses him a little bit, quite frankly. All right.
Number 5.
All right. So speaking of Kirby Smart, Brett McMurphy with a very interesting piece on the Action Network. I encourage everybody to go read it. But this is interesting, Mike. So there apparently is a Kirby Smart curse. There's only 11 coaches have beaten him since he's been a head coach, and all of it's been at Georgia. Of course, I think he's 95-16. So 5 of them are no longer coaching. Nick Saban, who has 5 of the 11 wins, of course, retired. Ed Orgeron has 2 of the wins. He's out of coaching. Dan Mullen, who we mentioned earlier, has a win. Paul Triple Option Johnson has a win. And the aforementioned Will Muschamp has a win. And they're all out of coaching. Here are the guys, the other 6, and this is interesting. They've all gotten fired. The 6 guys that are currently head coaches, they've all gotten fired from their previous jobs, and they're now elsewhere. Hugh Freeze, fired from Ole Miss, now at Auburn. Tom Herman, once at Texas, where he beat him, now at FAU. Butch Champions of Life Jones, beat him at Tennessee on that miracle pass. Now he's at Arkansas State. Gus Malzahn at Auburn beat him. Now he's at UCF. Derek Mason beat him at Vanderbilt that first year.
Yeah, I
now
remember
Middle
that.
Tennessee State. And the aforementioned Jim McElwain at Florida. And now's the head coach at Central Michigan. So,
yeah,
my question to you, after hearing that, because Saban's really the only guy that they hadn't wanted to get out of Dodge. So there's 6 other losses in his career. Is there a Kirby Smart curse? Are you just better off losing to the guy?
Well, there's like, I remember living in Atlanta, the Vanderbilt loss. People want to look at it now like everything has always been the Georgia fan base was in love with Kirby all along. That's not the case. There were some, speaking of time management mistakes, some play calling mistakes. Georgia fans know too well a couple of those head scratching moments against Alabama, where Georgia seemed like they had a win, but they kept blowing leads. They kept doing mysterious fake punt calls and things like, it wasn't all just peaches and cream for Kirby. Kirby went through some stuff too, but Kirby now they're a machine. They're Alabama 2.0. It's Nick Saban 2.0. It's absolutely what you're seeing in Athens. How many consecutive regular season wins is that now? You take away the championship
it's a record.
game.
Yeah, it's got to be a record.
It's phenomenal. I mean, it's just we're just at the point now. We're like, yeah, Georgia. They'll at worst they'll go 7-1 in the SEC. At worst, they'll go 12-1. They're like clockwork right now. And when you got it going, and you got all those built-in advantages that a coach has in Athens, it's really hard. And Kirby's not losing his fire for the job anytime soon. He doesn't seem like an NFL guy. Mm-hmm. Certainly not leaving for another college job. They're in really good shape over there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he lost 5 that first year. Since then, he's lost 11. 6 have been to Alabama. So he's lost to five times against anybody not named Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Since that happened, or only 5 times. And we read off all the coaches, Mullen, McElwain, Muschamp, all beat him.
That was Mullen's best team. That was the COVID year, right? That was 2020.
Really, yeah, the COVID
Kyle
year.
Pitts, Kyle Trask year.
Georgia was just okay that year. Their 19 team struggled on offense, and then what they did though, he was smart. He had James Coley coordinating the offense. James is back there as the head coach, but Coley kind of was the same at Miami, just kind of offenses that sounded good, but it wasn't great. Of course, he replaced Jim Chaney, who went to Tennessee under Pruitt after that run to the national championship game. Chaney did pretty good in Athens, I thought.
Yeah, he did.
But then he knocked with Todd Monken, he knocked it out of the park. I mean, Georgia's offense, a guy that writes for me on my South Carolina website described it as a death machine. And it does kind of look like we were talking about the Terminator earlier when you looked at them play, because it wasn't just line up and run through you out of the I formation like we see from Georgia now and in previous years. They'd spread it out. They'd bunch a lot of people in the formation. You'd have like 2 tight ends standing up, a back. And then half the time it was a short pass to a freak like Brock Bowers with a convoy of blockers in front of him. They could throw it deep. They could throw it mid-range. They would gas you. They rotate. I've never seen a team, the 2021 team, rotate 4 good running backs and use them all appropriately and the defense not know the play that was coming. That guy for 2 years was in the zone. And if you don't believe having the right offensive coordinator helps, ask Nick Saban. It does.
No question.
Right. If you're a defensive guy like Kirby. And I think he's just grown as a head coach. Anytime you're new at something, you got to kind of, and every coach, even Nick Saban, look at his first 4 years at Michigan State. He was a 500 ball coach.
I'll just say one more thing, and I know we got to get to break here. I thought it was fitting because Georgia, in a lot of ways, is what Dabo wants to be in terms of player acquisition. Georgia they don't live in the portal, but they use it here and there. So they get top-notch recruiting classes every year, and then they just pluck, they fill a void here and a void there. So you could say they're not a portal program because they're not. But as Dabo is sitting there and waxing poetic about, we don't believe in the portal, the two different players that caught a touchdown pass for Georgia in that game, portal.
The kid from Vandy, they got to replace McConkey.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
portal.
And all you heard all summer from Clemson folks was about their 2 5-star receivers. I guess they're not ready. They didn't really try to get them the ball. Moore and Wesco from Texas were 2 5-star guys. I mean, receivers, Sammy Watkins, as a true freshman at Clemson, lit the country up. Not everybody's Sammy Watkins, but they didn't even try to get him the ball. And that's the thing I was talking about, Mike. You were talking about Clemson and their quarterback situation. Well, on paper, 2 5-stars should work, but sometimes you don't get that. Kirby knows that.
Yeah.
At receiver, Georgia's had how many 4 and 5-star receivers? Well, a lot of them couldn't play dead in the movie. Misevaluation, so they transfer, and you move on, and you go get Missouri's best receiver or Vandy's best receiver or whoever else, you get out of the portal. And it works out, I think that's the thing people have to realize when they're assuming things about college football in the offseason is that those 5 stars are great and all, but they only hit at 60%.
No doubt. All right, quick timeout. Final segment. Get a little Group 5 John love, as well as a look ahead to it's not as great as week 1, but there are some hidden gem games in the week 2 slate. We'll talk about it on the other side.
Hey, folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a mid-Atlantic-based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCGinc.com. That's TitanCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
Listen up. This is for construction professionals, contractors, facility managers, or do-it-yourself homeowners. SitePro Rentals is ready to equip your upcoming project. We rent construction equipment for any size job. Boom and scissor lifts, telehandlers, skid steers, excavators, air compressors, generators, even small tools and equipment. SitePro has you covered. If you are ready for better equipment rental, call SitePro and rent from the local, friendly, easy to do business with equipment professionals. Call 972-RENT-NOW. That's 972-736-8669 to rent the newest equipment in the Atlanta market. Call 972-RENT-NOW or visit SiteProRentals.com.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right. Right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable, because this movement is just beginning.
Here's JC and Morgan.
All right, final segment. We're going to rifle through this. First off, G5 John with his top 10. By the way, G5 John is, as I understand it, just a little bit of a health concern. I wouldn't say issues, but we wish him well. Thoughts and prayers out to him. He's a great listener and great contributor to the program. I love this because it's really cool. And again, now with the G5 getting an automatic bid, which I wasn't sure how I felt about that early on, I'm starting to really actually enjoy that. I think there's room for one. Yes.
As long as it's not Liberty, I'm fine.
I don't think with that strength of schedule, Liberty.
I think their schedule's too bad. I think
bad.
they're a really good football team, and if they played some up, but I don't think you can reward that kind of nonsense.
I am with you. So he's got number 10, Texas State. They beat up on Lamar. Number 9, Tulane. They've got Kansas State. If Tulane wants to put everybody on notice, beat the Wildcats out of the Big 12. Number 8, UTSA. They've got Texas State. Number 7, James Madison. Number 6, Liberty. Again, they whooped up on Campbell. Hey, they're at New Mexico State. Liberty is.
The kill zone is no more in Las Cruces, Mike.
It's true. Enjoy the Tex-Mex there in Las Cruces. Number 5, USF. They're at Alabama this weekend. Number 4, App State. They're at Clemson this week. Oh, look out, Clemson.
Clemson's been a bad year to beef up their normally not so good schedule.
Yes. Gosh, who wants? At least they're not in Boone. Number 3, UNLV, in honor of JC's visor. They've got, I didn't even know this was a school. So they beat up on Houston. Next game, Utah Tech. Nobody circles the wagons like Utah Tech on a Saturday.
That game. I think it's at Allegiant. I think UNLV plays all their home games at Allegiant Stadium now. So,
well, I'm telling you what, nobody tailgates like the Utah Texters. Break out the slide rules and the avocado dip.
I just rolled over to StubHub. It says high demand for this game.
Demand.
Looks like the lower levels are going to sell out. So
if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Utah Tech travels. Okay, they're banned. They're fans, big boosters.
I'll say this: I don't spend as much time in Vegas as I used to when I was a single lad, but I've spent some time out there with work and kind of getting to know the people. One thing I found out is before the Raiders got there, they love the San Diego Chargers for whatever reason. But then number 2, they really do support UNLV when they're good at all sports. That's their team. They got a big rivalry with Nevada Reno. They don't like them. So they used to get 20,000 in there for basketball, Mike. So I'm not surprised that Allegiant's lower bowl will be at least half full for you.
Could you see a move to the Big 12 for your fighting, running Rebels?
They need the money. They're poor. They're very poor. they don't have a lot of money. They're very, very poor.
Yeah, have some more porridge for our poor athletic departments, sir.
They've had a lot of basketball openings, and they can't pay the money. So, but yeah, I mean, Las Vegas is a new emerging sports town. So,
I'm down. A great environment, by the way, on Sunday night for that game. That's going to be a hit. That's the new kickoff classic. Do we have that again next year? I would hope so. Are they doing another one of those in Vegas next year? That should be every year. And who the hell doesn't want to travel to Vegas? Yeah, we'll have to double check that. All right, number 2, Memphis. They battled Troy. And number 1, Boise State. And that man, Ashton Genty, who ran for 267 and 6 touchdowns. Well, if you want to make a Heisman case for a G5 player, go ahead and gash the Oregon Ducks. That's where they will be this Saturday. So look out for that. Big games this week. Texas, 3.5-point favorite at Michigan. Arkansas and Oklahoma State. That's juicy. Oklahoma State and the Mullet, 7.5-point favorite. Cal, Auburn. You've talked about this game before. Auburn, 13-point favorite. Tennessee, 7.5-point favorite against NC State. Colorado, Nebraska. Nebraska, 7.5-point favorite against Prime. And the Gamecocks and the Wildcats. This is brilliant scheduling. There's no other SEC conference games. You're on ABC. I'm not sure how often this year Carolina and Kentucky are going to be on ABC. I believe SEC Nation will be there. It's going to be, you're on center stage right now. Kentucky's a 10-point favorite in that one.
Yeah, I think we'll find out a lot about two teams in the SEC, South Carolina and Arkansas. I think Arkansas, like I said, I appreciate Arkansas Pine Bluff showing up for that game, but that was not a lot of resistance. Oklahoma State actually got off to a better start than I thought. A lot of people were thinking the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State, the FCS national champions, would cover the 14.5, and Oklahoma State had a comfortable win. That game's in Stillwater. Texas, Michigan's the big one in the big house. One game I'm interested in seeing, Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Tech could get off to a 3-0 start.
Yeah.
Q's has a new coach. They have Kyle McCord at quarterback. It's up there. That's a weird place. So we'll
of empty seats.
See sort of what happens. And App State Clemson's the rare non-conference night game for the Tigers. So we'll see what happens there. And thanks to Ed in the chat box points out, Utah Tech was once called Dixie College, but they changed the name.
I have no idea.
Incorrect. And to answer your question about Vegas kickoff, nothing scheduled next year. The next one is the battle of the two schools that throw up the U. You didn't know there was two U's, did you?
Miami
Utah
and Utah?
and Miami. Yeah, Utah and Miami.
What year is that?
2027 is the next one on the schedule.
We got to wait that long for another kickoff classic in Vegas?
There's always the Las Vegas Bowl.
That's true. I've called
And
them.
if I'm not mistaken, in 27, the national championship game is in Vegas. They've rewarded one to Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's in Atlanta this year. That's why I've got Mercedes behind me.
I think it goes Atlanta, Miami, Vegas, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you are correct.
So maybe 27. It's going to be a big celebration out there of college football. I was out there Super Bowl Sunday this past year. That's a town that can definitely handle a big event. It's a big.
No doubt. By the way, Craig says London Humphreys as McConkey 2.0. He might be faster than McConkey. I don't know. He motors pretty good. I'm expecting big things out of McConkey this year. That's why I took him in the fantasy draft last night, JC.
I know, right when I was fixing to take him.
You were about
that too.
And somebody nabbed Keon Coleman right before I did. I think he's going to have a monster year in Buffalo. Some rookie wideouts who were studs last year in college football. Thanks again to Site Pro Rentals for all your rental equipment needs. There's one place and one place only to go. I don't care where you are in the country. 972-RENT-NOW. 972-RENT-NOW. The phone number, the newest equipment. Great efficiency for you and your project site. I know we have a lot of people in that space that listen to the show. Site Pro Rentals can take terrific care of you. 972-RENT-NOW. Thanks to everybody tuning in on all the various forums. Don't forget you can check out the website, jcandmorgan.com as well. For Mad Dog, Phil Molinax, for Mr. Run and Reb himself, JC Shurburtt, Mike Morgan saying so long. We'll see you next week on JC and Morgan.